To introduce our Keynote and 2024 Youth Champion, I have the privilege of introducing my friend and fellow board member, Nate Sims. Nate is currently at Bowfinch Strategies. Nate, come on up, please, because you're going to help me introduce you, because I can't find my notes. Come on. Tell me your position. Director of Policy and Strategic Initiatives at Bowfinch Strategies. We're very proud of Nate, who just accepted that position. He previously was the Director of Government Policy and something else at Mass Mentoring Partnership. He's also held leadership positions at Roxbury Community College and Northeastern before that. So please welcome Nate Sims.
Appreciate you. Yay. Wonderful. It's so good to see all of your beautiful smiling faces here. I'm very fortunate and grateful to be able to represent on behalf of EVkids, as well as to have the opportunity to introduce our keynote speaker for tonight. The 2024 EVkids Youth Champion is Miss Tanisha M. Sullivan, Esquire. Ms. Sullivan is an award-winning civic, legal, and business leader, currently head of external engagement, government relations, and equity strategy for Sanofi. She also serves as president of the NAACP Boston branch and president of the NAACP New England Area State Conference. Ms. Sullivan led the creation of Take the Lead, an anti-racism campaign with professional sports organizations. She co-designed the framework for the Boston Office of Police Accountability and Transparency and launched The State of Race with GBH, a news series highlighting the issues impacting communities of color. Ms. Sullivan has also served as a host for Basic Black, the longest-running program on public television focused on the Black community. Ms. Sullivan previously took a 2-year sabbatical from law to serve in a cabinet-level position with the Boston Public Schools as its inaugural Chief Equity Officer. Ms. Sullivan has also served as a member of Governor Baker's Black Empowerment Commission and the Massachusetts Health Equity Task Force. During the pandemic, Ms. Sullivan was appointed by Boston Mayor Walsh to serve on the city's Health Equity Task Force and the Policing Reform Task Force, and last year, she was appointed to the Governor's Advisory Council on Empowerment by Governor Maura Healey. Quick side bit, I've had the pleasure of connecting with Ms. Sullivan in a various number of ways. Prior to the pandemic, 2020, I think was about February, I went to a sports entertainment event at TD Garden. And you may be aware, but TD Garden has a fortunate association with not necessarily being particularly supportive or welcoming for people of color. At the sports entertainment event, I happened to unfortunately witness a person wearing a Confederate flag hat. And for me, that type of hat is the equivalent of wearing a Nazi symbol in Israel. It's not something that's okay at all. So I simply expressed my discontent at being in this private venue in Boston, Massachusetts, and seeing somebody with a Confederate hat on. And not surprisingly, I was met with just the worst type of reaction. I had police officers trying to tell me about First Amendment rights. I had TD Garden staff sitting there acting like they didn't know what was going on, but I had to let them know, unfortunately, you got the right one and you got the wrong one today, because you're not gonna let me know what my rights are and what I should or should not be subject to in this private institution in the state of Massachusetts in Boston, first of all. So after 5 minutes of letting them know that I know my rights, I was actually given an apology by a police captain as well as a manager from TD Garden staff. And then about a month later, the pandemic hit. So in between this time, because I'm this type of person, I sent an email. I happened to reach out to my state representative, my state senator, as well as the state rep and state senator for TD Garden. I made sure I CC'd BPD Internal Affairs as well as TD Garden staff. And this was the difference maker, because I also included the NAACP at the time frame. Nobody else responded to my email besides Tanisha Sullivan. Not only did she respond to my email, she went above and beyond and actually got me directly in contact with the president for TD Garden. So I was issued a formal apology and offered to come back to TD Garden whenever they opened back up. But fortunately, they were closed at the time frame for the pandemic. But rest assured, as soon as they started open back up and had those games going on, my partner and I, we made sure we collected our debt, and we happened to go to a Celtics game on Mother's Day, and it was beautiful. And that's the thing that makes Tanisha special. She didn't do it because she owed me anything or because she had something to gain. She did it because she was able to, because she was capable of doing so, and because it was the right thing to do. And trust me, as a corporate lobbyist, with the current political climate as it now stands, we need leaders like Tanisha now more than ever. So I'm privileged and honored, and I would like to offer my sincere congratulations to Tanisha Sullivan Esquire on this well-deserved recognition as the 2024 EVkids Youth Champion.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the story. The stories matter. Not because of you making reference to how the NAACP in that moment was supportive to you, but because I'm hopeful that in the storytelling, whether it's that story or another story that's sitting in this room, that it can serve as an inspiration to others, that one person, one voice can make a difference. And so I appreciate the storytelling, and particularly in this time, and as I move through some of my remarks, I hope that each of us starts to think more deeply about the stories we're holding within, the stories of how others have, in just a moment, extended themselves to be supportive of us, or how we ourselves have, just because we are being brother and sister to one another, have done something for someone in maybe a small way that has made a difference. The storytelling is so very important, especially now. So thank you for the storytelling. I want to say good evening. Y'all can do better than that. So I oftentimes remind folks, I tell folks and I remind folks, I grew up in a Baptist church, and so, we do call and response. And so it's good evening. Good evening. I love that. I love that energy. And thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. I certainly want to extend my thanks, especially to Eric and the EVkids family. This is my first EVkids experience, first. But what I've realized as I have taken the time to get to know this organization and to better understand the work that you do, what I've come to understand is that I do know you. I know the work. I know the work. I'm so deeply appreciative of the work. And so if I go back to my faith roots, it reminds me of the biblical verse, and it's, that you will know them by their fruit. Your fruit is good. Eric, your fruit is good. It's good work. And as you sit here across from your parents, Marie Claude and Brian, and my mom is here. What a blessing it is to be able to extend legacy in this way. That the seeds that your parents planted, and watered, you are able to carry forward so that more generations of young people more generations of families, more generations of community are able to benefit from this work. And so I thank you, Eric. I thank Marie-Claude. I thank Brian for your vision and for your commitment to our community. So thank you. It's really good, and I mean this, it is really good to be here today. It's been a long year. It has been, for us as a nation, one that has been filled with a lot of anxiety, a lot of ups and downs. I'm not even talking about political affiliation or where you may or may not have been when it comes to the political landscape in this year's election cycle. It doesn't really matter. The fact is, this election cycle was incredibly polarizing for us as a nation. It challenged us in ways that, we thought we'd been challenged before. At least I thought we'd been challenged before, but baby, this year was a little bit different. And, as I think about where we are as a nation, we are nearly 250 years as a nation. This wild idea of a nation that is built on these values of freedom, justice, and equality for all people. Values that I believe deeply each of us wants, no matter what our political ideology is or our party affiliation may be. I believe that all of us want some freedom, justice, and equality. And so 250 years, and here we are at a point in our nation's history where we could be literally just so near evenly divided about how we get to freedom, justice, and equality for all people. And so I'm so happy to be here tonight because this organization and the work of this organization is a reminder to me that it's always been about we the people. It's always been about what we the people do to strengthen our communities, to lift one another up, and to press as hard as we possibly can toward the realization of this promise that America holds for each of us. EVkids is a beacon in that way. It is reflective of so many other community-based grassroots organizations that are built by the sweat equity of each of us. And so I am just so grateful that you would allow me to come into this space, to be inspired, to be uplifted, to be reminded of what this thing is all about. When I reflect on this past week's election outcome, I've been asked many times over this week, how are you? How you doing? I'm good. I'm good. I'm really good. Because I know that this is but a moment in our journey as a nation. It's just one piece of it. What happens in this country, yes, has a little bit to do with what happens in Washington, but it has a whole lot to do with what happens in our own backyard. And so I'm good. Because I know that in this community, I know that in the city of Boston, I know that in the Commonwealth, we remain committed to one another. And so I'm good. But I also want to say that I'm very reflective about kind of how we got here. How is it that we could be a society that is just so all wanting the same thing, but just so divided on how to get there? And as I've read and listened this week, I've been struck by how many people among us, our neighbors, feel like it's just not working. How many of our neighbors among us feel like they're not experiencing what this promise says we should be experiencing? How many neighbors are feeling like they're alone in this thing? Regardless of what happens in DC over the next 4 years, we got to figure that thing out. We have to figure out how we can get back to ensuring that our neighbor feels and is experiencing the prosperity, the opportunity, and the promise that this country has to offer. And I believe there are a few things we can all do. One is, of course, continue to support organizations like this one. You don't have to do it all. You don't have to be the person who writes the policy or runs for office or, starts an organization. You don't have to do that. You can support an organization that already exists. And because you're in this room, you're already doing that, you can pull someone else into this organization or another one like it. But an organization like this one that is so deeply rooted in community, that has been here through administrations, state, federal, local administrations, and continued to bear good fruit, is worth the investment. The other piece is, I'm a firm believer that each of us has been placed on this earth to do something that only we can do. There's something that is in each of us that nobody else has. A lot of people live their lives never discovering what that is, and so that seed dies within them. During this time, and this is age agnostic. Because some of us are blessed to discover that thing when we're 8 years old, and others of us are blessed to discover that thing when we're 88. But in this time, when so many of us personally are trying to figure out what to do next, and when so many of our institutions are trying to figure out how we can pull this thing back together, I want to encourage you tonight to find that thing that was put inside of you that only you can do here on this earth for our society. I want to encourage you to find it, believe it, and act on it. Some of you in this room, it's really big. Some of you in this room, it may seem like the smallest thing in the world, but what you don't know is that it is a critical piece of life's puzzle. It feels small to you, but its impact is great. If nothing else, this time for us is a reminder of we the people. We the people in community, we the people in our neighborhoods, we the people in our schools. This is about us. And so I'll end where I began with when people ask me, how you doing? I'm good, I'm great. This is just one more stop on the journey. A reminder that I've got to dig a little deeper to find my thing and make sure that I'm staying on purpose. So I thank you tonight for this recognition for the work that is so important to me, that I have the opportunity to do, that I'm blessed to do, to help ensure that our young people have what they need to find their thing. I thank you for that. And especially today, I thank you for that, because it is a reminder of just how many great things are happening in this city and how many great organizations we are blessed to have in this city. I'm honored to receive it. Thank you.
Tanisha, as soon as you walked in, I said, oh my goodness, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. And it was exactly the message we needed. Thank you for the call to action. And thank you for your beautiful mother sitting there witnessing it all. We love you both. Thank you. Bravo. Congratulations. Tanisha Sullivan, a fearless leader in this city. Thank you.